County School Board to order at this time. I ask Mrs. Ogilvy if she will call the roll.
Mr. Alker?
Here.
Ms. Flanagan?
Here.
Dr. DeVault?
Here.
Ms. Maddox? Mr. Milner?
Here.
Dr. Stanbaugh?
Here.
And Mr. Zade?
Present.
Thank you. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to hold a public hearing. The purpose to discuss the coming budget procedure. So at, I guess 1 minute past 6, Ms. Ogilvy, I will declare that we'll now open the public hearing for the purpose of discussing the budget procedures for the coming year. Dr. Cotton, see that. Oh, you don't? Are we okay here?
No, just a minute.
Be patient. Should board members talk during the public hearing, or can we talk after the public?
I'll leave that up to board members.
My understanding, Dr. Cotton, that the board will have a chance to get some input in the budget in the next several weeks. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. As a matter of fact, what I plan to do is similar to what I've done in the past. Is we'll meet. I'll meet in small meetings with board members, 2 at a time, and go through recommendations based on needs that have been presented. Some direction that I'll need. Obviously, there are a few items that I'll need some decisions made from the board. I know there was some discussion about random drug testing, for example, which is a presentation that's coming up with the cost associated with that. So board members want to pursue something like that, I'll need some direction, because obviously there will be something else that we can come off the plate in order to fund that. And there could be other things that board members want to have me pursue, but some of that can happen during those meetings, or certainly direction can be provided before.
I sense that you know speakers from the floor, unless maybe some staff members want to speak. So, Dr. Cotton, do you have a presentation you want to discuss with us?
Mr. Chairman, honestly, it's the same presentation that we looked at before, and I just had it up and ready in case there were any questions. Just as a reminder, hopefully it'll move forward here. It's thinking. I haven't been left tonight.
It's too cold.
Still warming up. As a reminder, just to everyone here, that the enrollment did come in less than what we projected. And obviously, as we're planning for this budget, we're using an enrollment number, lower number of the estimates that we've received, because we want to make sure that we don't overestimate our enrollment. The other thing that I pointed out in previous meetings with advisory groups and the roundtable groups are reminders of our budget priorities. And as noted here, they're aligned to our strategic objectives, our strategies, and our strategic plan. And then obviously I've emphasized those, and board members have a chance to review these at our previous board meeting, looking at the importance of high quality instruction, high quality professionals, safe and orderly schools, technology, our continued investment in technology, which is something that we want to keep moving forward with, our effective resource management, and family and community engagement is an area that we really want to spend some more time with moving forward. Also pointed out some highlights of the governor's budget that was shared, and of course that bottom line number there is what we've received, and what that really means is which looks like an increase for us, and it certainly is, but the point I wanted to make was reminding the board of that 2% raise that we're implementing this month, and how that is an ongoing cost that's going to impact our budget moving forward. And of course, we still monitor sequestration. Of course, we heard, some of us that heard Senator Warner today talk about sequestration. In his mind, we weren't going to have issues with that for the next couple of years, and I hope that holds true. And the VRS rates, that's going to impact our budget as well, because that's an increase that we're dealing with. And we're still waiting on our health insurance premiums. We're estimating an increase, I want to say, we estimate about 15%. Hopefully it'll be less than that, but we want to err on the side of caution. We still haven't received that information. And then, of course, our increased utility costs and fuel costs will be important to monitor. And then, of course, as you know, our capital improvement needs are important for us to address. So really, these are our strategies that we're putting in place right now. Just as an update to the board, we have received all of the budgets from the schools and the departments. We've been going through those and really looking at zero-based budgeting, because we're not looking at an influx of new money coming in, but obviously the schools and departments have some real important needs that they've brought to our attention that we're certainly looking at. And then, of course, additional items here that we're dealing with, the slow recovery of revenue, our healthcare costs, the VRS hybrid plan. That's one that's going to be a challenge for us, because we're trying to estimate what increased costs we'll face. And that's very difficult to do, because you don't know which employees are going to need to utilize short-term disability and some of those costs there. So it's a prediction that we have to make. And we're spending a lot of time trying to understand that new plan. And then uncertain fuel and utility costs and increasing capital needs that I've talked about before. And then, of course, challenges with local funding, because our community, our local government is dealing with the same kinds of challenges. Reminders of some dates. We've had to adjust some of these due to weather. I was supposed to meet with the classified advisory today. That didn't happen. We rescheduled that, and we have some others that are rescheduled there. And just a reminder that we have a budget feedback email that we collect some information. I also wanted to just point out that we have received some initial results from the VAST salary study. Do you remember we were doing the salary study for all staff? And I've just scheduled that the representatives from VAST are going to present their recommendations at the March meeting. Unfortunately, I couldn't get them in for February, but they'll be presenting those results at the March meeting. And just as we predicted, they're going to have a lot of recommendations, and there's no way that we can implement all of them at once. We'll have to start talking about priorities and what can we do in what order. And it may not happen in this budget cycle. It may have to be something that we implement over time, because frankly we won't be able to afford all of the recommendations coming forward. But I wanted them to present that to the board, because I wanted you to get that report with those recommendations, and then we'll go from there. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware that that's coming. Other than that, I don't have any additional updates at this time.
Questions for Dr. Cotton? Comments? I wonder, Dr. Cotton, as we get into reviewing the recommendations that come from this study on our county salaries for our personnel, is there any type of procedure that would allow us to equate what a dollar salary in Henry County, how that compares to a dollar salary in Northern
That's not included in the report. We can certainly ask a question like that. What they've done for us is they've determined who our peers are, which school divisions are comparable to Henry County, and how do their pay structures compare to ours based on market and some of those other things. Really their approach.
Is that comparable, when you say comparable to our county, is that comparable in size and employee population, student population, or does it take into effect economic situations from one area to the other?
It's more regional comparisons, I would say, that the school divisions that were compared to were really Southside Virginia school divisions for the most part. The other interesting thing was, in their survey, they asked staff who they felt are good comparison group might be, which school divisions would be good to compare us to, and they actually provided feedback on that as well, and those results really matched up nicely to what they were looking at. But they didn't do a comparison with the Fairfax because, for that very reason, because the issues that Fairfax is facing would be very different from ours. And even if they try to compare us to a similar size in a different part of the state, the issues aren't the same. And you also need to look at the whole, not just recruiting, but retention. And we tend to lose staff to folks in this area, and we also recruit from divisions surrounding us. So that's where they focus. But they also compared some positions to market, like technology positions, bus mechanics, some of the facilities positions, nurses, other positions were compared to market as well. Give us an indication of where we are.
I've often thought it would be advantageous if you could, when you're recruiting first-year teachers, they go to the job fairs and see what salaries are, in what areas compared to what ours are. If we could some way say our salary will allow you certain cost per meeting here as compared to what their salary allows them to cost per meeting there. I guess that type of data, it's not available.
Not in this report, but that's probably something that we can try to access, because that would be great for recruiting. Obviously, I don't want to give away too much of the report, but obviously a big plus for us is our benefits package in Henry County. That came out very clearly, and our teacher scale, based on the data, is really designed to recruit. But what we need to look at, which will be part of that presentation, is how do we retain? Because you got to do both. So that would be part of this discussion.
We don't want to be just a training ground for the divisions. We want to attract and retain top-class people.
Dr. Duvall makes a good point. I think, Dr. Cotton, that we could talk to the economic development people and maybe get some information, because they have all the tax rates of all the jurisdictions in the Commonwealth, and our personal property rates and real estate rates are much, much cheaper than Fairfax County and those type of jurisdictions. So it'd be a lot better to have a job in Henry County making $50 than I would be in Fairfax making $65. You'd have a whole lot more purchasing power right here. And the economic development folks got the information. Mr. Adams and the Board of Supervisors got some more information on that there.
And sometimes new staff members are just looking at salary.
I understand.
They're not looking at cost of living, so that's important.
Well, we don't want to just look at our salaries and say, well, they're great. They can leave. But at the same time, it would be nice to be able to say, these are the advantages of working here, as Mr. Sayers said, as opposed to working somewhere where the salary might be great. That doesn't negate the fact we'd like to improve ours too, obviously. Other questions or comments about the procedure we're just getting started in?
I was asked a question today in view of the announcement made by Senator Warner. If you de-emphasizing or offering fire and EMS training. And I told that I thought that I heard that we were going to do that in conjunction with Patrick Henry Community College. Would you care to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, we have added the courses to our program of studies for secondary students, and we're partnering with Patrick Henry Community College. And I was just told recently that they found an instructor, which is good for that course. So initially, it's a part of our how we do dual enrollment for students participating in courses through Patrick Henry Community College. And really, we're trying to determine what kind of interest we're going to have, because one of the challenges that we had in the past was the numbers, the enrollment really went down.
That's one of the things that I pointed out, that we didn't really drop the ball before, but enrollment just declined to the point that it was not profitable.
Yes, the enrollment went down and really got to a point where we could only staff a half a position, if I'm remembering correctly. And, you're not going to have an instructor that wants to work half-time. And then, of course, decisions have to be made at that point. But we're hoping that we'll increase student interest. Matter of fact, we have some folks that are going to be at some of the curriculum expos that we're doing at our high schools to try to recruit. So we're hoping that we'll get some students in that program.
With the interest that has been generated, as we looked at the possibility of perhaps trying to get funding from someone else that may be also interested, or we looked at grants in that area?
Not at this point.
Not sure that there are any grants available specifically for that. So I can't say we pursued that, because again, they have pursued themselves as an opportunity. If something would come across your desk, I'm sure we would pursue it. If you remember, this program started out as a grant.
Right.
Regardless. And we shared the cost with Martinsville, and then Martinsville stopped it. We maintained the program until it became, it got to the point where we couldn't sustain the enrollment with just our full-time position.
We did hear in the meeting this morning that I guess the locality has received a grant to fund pay to EMS
Right.
people. And there was some indication there would be maybe, 14 or 15 people
Right.
could be employed. That might send a message to more young people that there are opportunities in the future for full-time employment if we have this certification. So that's a plus too, I think.
And it seemed to be a point of discussion among our governing body, an increased interest in this. So I just thought maybe with that, maybe can come some additional funding some way or another.
Those classes will be taught at Patrick Henry.
Yeah. Keep in mind, it's new, so we're going to see how it takes off, but hopefully we'll have a lot of interest. And we don't have our high school schedule requests yet. We'll get those together.
The program studies, we'll start the scheduling process and get back to school.
Yeah, we have to get back to school. That'd be nice. So we'll start that schedule process when the students return.
Another thing that came up big last year was the resource officers. So is there any light at the end of the tunnel as far as additional resource officers?
We have not seen that light. I will tell you that we did apply for a grant for CCL. And if you remember the grant application, because I know that we were looking at that last year as well. The challenge with the grant is you get funding the first year, but each year after that, the local match gets larger. So if we were to ask for several positions, then we have to incur that cost moving forward. And the other challenge we had was we couldn't hire 3, for example, to serve all of the elementary schools. You had to hire 1 per school. They couldn't serve any other school. So, the challenge there would be which school, which elementary school, and they couldn't serve any other schools. And the other piece of the grant is you really have to show a need for security in that area, in that community, in that school. So essentially, you would have to have evidence of increased crime or 911 calls in that community to justify. So we determined that CCL, the Center for Community Learning, would be the best option. So we submitted an application for that one position. We still don't have any additional officers to serve our elementary schools. That would have to obviously be an increased cost, and I'm not expecting an influx of funds to support that, but we can certainly look at what that would cost if we included that in the budget.
This is, perhaps not the time. I have a brother that lives in Georgia, and he's a marshal in the Navy, getting ready to retire. And in Georgia, the resource officers are not employees of the police department. They're employees of the school. Are we the only state that have this particular arrangement, or what does North Carolina have, or other?
Well, I believe North Carolina is the same way, that they're employed by the
The SRO officers at least at the high schools and middle schools, and I don't think there were any in elementary schools when I was there, but they were all employees of the sheriff's department.
but there are some states that are moving toward what you're describing, and we're fortunate here that we have such a great partnership with the sheriff's office. That works well because we collaborate so well together. I'm not sure that I want the school division to take on that responsibility, because that's yet an additional role that we would have to serve in that capacity. And we're fortunate that we have such a great partnership now. At this point, I don't see any need to change that. I don't know, did you have any particular ideas on the benefits of doing it that way, or were you just thinking that
Well, one benefit as expressed by my brother was that in the event of an emergency, our SROs would be called off, as opposed to if they were employees of the school that were not.
the other thing that grant, correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, you could also employ someone who wasn't an actual officer. You can employ a person that could serve in a security role. We didn't like that option.
They are using retirees there, and also former police officers. They've already received training and stuff of this nature.
Yeah.
They're not just picking people off the street.
But to answer your question, there is a grant. It's not as good as it sounds because there are limitations and there's ongoing costs, and you have to include in the grant application how you're going to support the ongoing costs past year 3, 4, and beyond. So, and there's stipulations with how they can be used. And you remember we were looking at them serving more than one school, so the grant would not allow us that flexibility.
The request that we made last year, though, for the 3 officers would have allowed them to serve more than one school. Possibly not. Wouldn't have been through that particular grant.
You're exactly right. We would have, we actually worked with the sheriff's office to come up with a plan where they would serve more than one school within the different zones. And, we thought it was a pretty good plan. But again, that's an ongoing cost. We'd have to look at.
Any other concerns that would address the purpose of the public hearing from the board? I mentioned earlier that we didn't have speakers signed up. Mr. Adams, you came in. Would you like to speak? If you'd rather listen than speak, that's fine. Then I guess at this time, 6:25, and so we will declare that the public hearing part of this meeting is over. Move on to any other matters from the board, if there are some, that would be separate from the purpose of the public hearing. If not, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Those in support of the stated motion signify by raising your right hand. The meeting is